haven't seen it.
Come on in.
Because when they're year round,
Yeah.
they get traveling, yeah.
Lumberjack.
The southeast is infested with them. One of those creatures that came into the country without They're not the same. What's not going I always do it work. Of course you do. Come on in, everybody.
You've got to change.
Who wants to be my recorder? Great. Push the red button when I start, and then stop it during the break, and push it again when I start again. No, just go ahead and stop it so it's programmed into two files. Because it's not uncommon that I forget to turn the recorder back on. Come on in, Sherry. Go ahead and sign in later, Sherry and Jane. Come on in. Come on in. Ron. There we go. Come on in. Andy, you ready? Are we rolling? Oh, good. We're starting. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, Nancy. Welcome, welcome, welcome to a very different kind of a class. It's both different in content and in structure in that it's a daytime class. And it's on old-time metaphysics and Bible. So, we always begin everything with a spiritual mind treatment, and I invite you to close your eyes if you want to. Not required. But what we do is embark on the powerful act of knowing. And what we know is that there is one thing going on. It's God, it's spirit, it's divine, it's light and life and health and wholeness of all kinds. It is all that there is, and out of itself was all things made. So right here and right now, we are made out of God's stuff. We are the divine in form as us. And I know that we come together this day to open up our awareness to greater possibilities of being who we are, God in form as us, and living the God life that we were always meant to live. A life of health, a life of prosperity, a life of love, a life of success, a life of joy in every way. That is ours, and I claim it for each of us, right here and right now. And with great gratitude for Center for Spiritual Living Asheville, for Annie Ritz-Malitz, for spiritual truth of all kinds, I simply release this treatment into the mind of God, because I know that that mind of God is all. And together we say, and so it is. Thank you, thank you. Welcome, welcome. Whoever's signing in, just come on in and sign in later. If you come a few minutes late, you'll have all the time in the world to fill out those forms. So come into the class and fill out the forms later. I'm really excited about this class. I'm not exactly, I think I'm just going to move this. Gotta love the invention of the wheel. Yes. I'm very excited about this class because I have a deep love of the origins of science of mind. I have a deep love of the languaging of it. And those of you who have studied with me in the past, we're going to do things a little bit differently in that you're going to hear things and you're going to practice things that we don't usually do. The second lesson is all about denials. And so whereas in Monday night class, we're about to get into a chapter in creative mind that Ernest says, no, don't use denials. Some of those old-fashioned teachers use denials, but really they're not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is with affirmations. Now, Annie Ritz wrote this book in 1900. And so they were all about denials. She studied with Emma Curtis Hopkins and Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. These lessons in, primary lessons in Christian living and healing is really the name of the book, was used in Unity for many, many years until Unity got its own curriculum and they just kind of went their own separate ways. As far as I can tell, there was no upset in it all. They just stopped using her material and came up with, Charles was the big writer, I believe, and came up with their own material. But I love this because all through the years I get people who say, I don't have your issues with Christianity. Because I, over the years, have worked through a number of issues with my Methodist upbringing and the way that Scripture was twisted to strike fear into people's hearts, to scare little children, and to threaten and guilt people out. So people will come up to me and say, I don't have your issues with Christianity, and I'm not really clear about the bridge between traditional Christianity and science of mind. So I'm doing this class as a way to explore some of those ideas that actually were written in the Bible, not someone's interpretation about what that meant, and to look at how truth is truth no matter what context it's presented in. So when we've got ideas that come forth in a typical Bible, and this is not so much, we're going to do a little bit, but not so much metaphysical Bible interpretation. It's not even the Lamsa rewriting of the Bible that came about through the Nag Hammil find in Egypt and the Dead Sea Scrolls that were found. And they went back and he was raised where Jesus was raised. He speaks fluent Aramaic. It is his native tongue. And he's also a professor, so he speaks fluent English. And so he went back through and he retranslated the Greek into English. They're in the King James Version of the Bible. It's been translated well over 300 times. And if you put 300 people in a circle and say, Jesus said, by the time you get it back around and then add a couple of hundred years to it, it's going to be different and it's going to be modified to be used for people's personal gain. So he went through and he retranslated it. And just because we're starting off, I'll digress from my notes a little bit. There are some wonderful changes in the retranslation directly from the Aramaic into English, one of which is in the Lord's Prayer. It doesn't say, lead us not into temptation, which adds to the idea that there's this outside God that's just messing with us, that's leading us into temptation, and then if we go into temptation, we're going to burn forever in hell. I mean, what kind of a sick person, really, what kind of a sick person is this that would do that to people? So what the truer translation is, do not let us enter into. Now that's a whole different thing. If we're going down the track that's not going to lead to joy and happiness, if there could be some divine intervention, we would appreciate it. We would appreciate a little higher wisdom coming into our lives so that we don't continue to make the same mistake. That's a whole different idea of deity. Granted, it's an outside power, it's a father figure, all of that. One other thing that I found in my studies over the decades is that when the Iron Curtain fell, which was not so long ago, some of the libraries were opened up to scholars around the world, and they found a Bible from 1400. And in the margin, a scribe had written, "For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but shall have everlasting life." That was not in the Bible. That was a scribe's addendum, an explanation that got since incorporated into Scripture to the point where they put it in at John 3:16 and has been used to facilitate this idea that Jesus is our Savior and that we have to believe in that to have everlasting life. The downside of that would be not everlasting life. It would be eternal hellfire and brimstone. Hell is actually a term that was used for the garbage dump outside of the walls of Jerusalem. And it was often on fire. They would just take their garbage out there and dump it. And so when it says burning in hellfire, that's a piece of garbage. It's not something that's set up on an absolute level by an infinite, all-powerful deity that is going to punish us throughout eternity. Again, that's crazy. That's sadistic. And so as we start to explore some of these ideas that have come through traditional Christian scripture, I want us to look at what the true meaning is, or the truer meaning is of what was said, instead of what it has been twisted into to manipulate the masses. And for all of his ultra-conservative viewpoints, I love the new Pope. He came out last week and said God needed the Big Bang. What's out of alignment with evolution and spiritual creation? They go hand in hand. And here is a fight that's been going on for so long. Well, God either made the earth in 6 days, which is metaphorical, or we had evolution and neither of the twain can meet. And what he said just a couple of days ago was God used the Big Bang to create form. And he's saying any idiot can see that. So for all of his...
He didn't say that.
No. He's thinking any idiot can see that. He said it in Italian, I didn't. Or what is he? He's Portuguese, right? Spanish, Argentina. So for all of his ultra-conservative viewpoints about abortion and people's sexual preference and marriage and things like that, he still is bringing in some light into a very ultra-conservative and rigid philosophy that many people around the planet adhere to. So if you're at all uncomfortable with pushing the limits of what Scripture has meant in the past to you, just take a deep breath, because we're going to. And those of you who are out, riding on the front line saying, let's look at this and see what it really means and see how it relates to our lives, that's more what we're going to do. So that's the Bible part of the class. The other part of the class is this amazing woman named Annie Ritz. And then she married a guy named Blitz. I'm sure she was thrilled about that rhyme. And came up with the name Annie Ritz Blitz. But when she wrote this, she was Annie Ritz. And I don't know if you've read Florence Shinn on The Game of Life and How to Play It, Emma Curtis Hopkins, some of the original thinkers that created mental science and new thought. They have a different way of languaging. They use things that I personally have let go of a long time ago. So again, you're going to hear things that may seem a little bit different. A lot of use of the word evil and sin and a lot of denials. And a part of me loves denials. Disease is neither person, place, nor thing. I send you back into the nothingness from whence you came. Wow. I was talking to John. That's one reason I was running late. I was talking to John as he was driving to his office in Denver this morning, and he sounded terrible. And I know he had been in Chicago yesterday at the 5-hour memorial service for Johnny Coleman, and it was, I think, 5 degrees when he got there, things like that. And he's talking like that, and I was reading this, and I said, well, according to Annie Ritz, disease is neither person, place, nor thing, and has no place in your life in the all good of the all God that is right here and right now. And at that moment, he put his Bluetooth down and picked up the phone and said, there, am I better? I said, hallelujah to him. Instant manifestation. So there's that part of me that loves the idea that says, if you are not in alignment with all that God is, you have no reality. You have no form, you have no substance, you have no say in my life, and I'm not going to give you the time of day. I'm not going to think about you, I'm not going to talk about you, I'm not going to look at you, I'm not going to see you. And in the 1900s, keep in mind that a lot of mental science came about by people having physical issues. I don't know when antibiotics came into form, but they were not around when science of mind and primary lessons in healing came. One of the first things that Ernest and his brother Fenwick did was set up a tuberculosis sanatorium in Venice, California, so that people who had tuberculosis could come and be surrounded by spiritual practitioners who would pray over them and speak the truth over them and assist them in healing that way. We didn't have antibiotics. We didn't have modern medicine. We didn't have x-rays. We didn't have all kinds of things that now if we get something, we go and we have traditional medicine just work its magic on us. And there are times when I'm a big believer in traditional medicine. You know, if my arm is broken, I don't want acupuncture. Forgive me for those who are acupuncturists. I want it set. If I've got an infection, I'll go and get antibiotics, that kind of thing. So when they were doing this, they were dealing with people who were very, very ill. And they would look at them and say, your illness isn't real. That thing that you think you have, you don't have. It's not real. It has no substance in the world of spirit. And the world of spirit is all that there is, and you are a spiritual being, so your body must have that physical reality to it, and this doesn't belong to you. And people would get healed over and over and over and over again. And now we have a lot of studies and growth about how the power of thought can transform the physical body in such a way that healings are instantaneous. I mean, maybe the treatments were a placebo effect. I don't care. Whatever happens, so that these people who were looking at dying would come to someone and they would speak their word with absolute conviction and faith over them. And something would happen. Would it be like it was as simple as John's Bluetooth hadn't been plugged in overnight, and so it was losing its signal, and I couldn't understand him, and I thought he was sick, because he said he didn't feel well? Or, you know, what difference does it make how that healing manifests into form? When you focus on something, we bring it into existence. And so people would come to these spiritual practitioners, whether it was Christian Science or Unity or any of the other things that were put together. I have this wonderful book called New Thought, New Woman. And it's all about the original women who created New Thought at a time when women didn't have the vote, when women were considered property by their husbands, when if you left your husband, you didn't get your children, there was no chance in heaven or hell that you would have custody. The children belonged to the father, that kind of thing. They were going out and they were saying, there's a power and presence within you that is greater than any illness, any lack, any limitation, any problem. And if you open up to that and you can live in that world, your outer world will transform. So people would come to these women usually, and they would speak their word and they would be healed. They would be healed of things that the doctors said you can't be healed about. I was watching Johnny Coleman's memorial service yesterday and was reminded of how she came into this teaching. She was told that she had 3 months to live. She was in her early 20s. And her mother ascribed to the daily word from Unity and left it open on the coffee table for her. And sure enough, she saw it, and finally she was motivated because they just told her she was going to die. And she picked up the daily word and she read it, and it talked about how disease has no place in your life. There's no reality to this. It doesn't hold you, that there is something inside of you that is already healthy, perfect, whole, and complete. And she said, I want more of this. And her mother, who had set this up, said, well, you know, you can go over to Unity Village and they'll teach you all about this. And so she did. And from that, she has, at her passing, the Christ Universal Temple in Chicago has a membership of 30,000 people. 5,000 people show up for Sunday service at one time. It was interesting because they talked about what a pioneer she was, in that all of the other students could stay on the property at Unity Village, but she couldn't because she was black. And she came in one day, her car had broken down, she walked the rest of the way in the rain, and she threw open the door and said, I am not going to do this anymore. And it was Catherine Ponder who gathered all of the students together and petitioned the administration of the school to let her stay on the grounds. And this was big. You know, they let Johnny Coleman stay on the grounds. She was the first black person to ever swim in the pool at Unity Village. And she brought a bunch of children of her same color and let them swim in the pool. And these were history-making things. But she was always saying, there is something inside of me that is bigger than whatever anybody else has told me. And she was willing to step forward in that. This old-time mental science does stuff. It does stuff. And it's not about, you know, let's take it into our meditation and let's see how the studies have said. You know, it is just absolutely, this is the power of my word. I speak my word. It is scripturally based, and I'm going to stand on that, and I don't care what happens. I will not change my mind, and boom, stuff happens. There was a woman that I heard at Mary Tompkins Memorial, who was Johnny Coleman's student, who married John and me in Miami, and we were good friends with her. And a woman came from Jamaica and spoke and said, I had 3 days to live. 3 days to live, and this teaching saved my life. There was no process time in that. She didn't have process time. She had time to speak the word or have someone speak the word over her and for her disease to vanish in a miraculous way. And so this is the kind of power that we're looking at. And as we move through it, those of you who have been in my classes, I want you just to cut me a little slack for saying things that, well, there's no evil. Why are you talking about evil? Why are you talking about sin? Why are you talking about this? You say that that's not part of the teaching. Just cut me a little slack as we go through this journey, and let's explore this in the flavor that it was presented in. Because there are absolute results to be had. Absolute results to be had. So I don't know if you have this book or not. Who ordered the book online? Who's got the book? Margaret's got one book in the room online from Amazon, right? From Abe Books?
ABE.com.
Great, from Abe Books. The rest of you, I see, have either printed the book off the website. The website is www.cslasheville. Whoops. .org, and you go to free downloads. You go to books, and then you go to primary lessons. And it'll download right into your computer. And then if you have a Nook or a Kindle or some kind of a tablet or something like that that you want to read it on, if it's a tablet, you can download it directly from the internet into your tablet. If it's a Nook or a Kindle, I know for me, I can tether it to my computer, which is just plug it directly into my computer, and then click and drag it over into my Nook, and presto, it's right there on my Nook, and I can read it on my reader. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to do that. If you want to actually print it out, you're welcome to do that. If you want to bring your computers and read it on your computer, you're welcome to do that. But the book is available online. I like to have as many things available through our website as possible so that anybody in the world can have that. There are billions and billions of people who do not have the ability to go to Abe Books or to go onto Amazon or something like that and purchase a book. It's just not ever going to happen. So they contact us and say, thank you for having books on your website that we can download and read, because they have smartphones. You know, they're either reading on their smartphone and that then they can use that. So if you want to order the book online, you can do that, Abe Books, and I think you can find it through Amazon. And if not, just get it off the website and we'll go through it. We're going to go through the first 2 lessons today. Do we have any questions before we go ahead and get started?
Are it gonna be in the, is it gonna be in the bookstore or
No,
the hard copy?
no, you have to buy it yourself.
Oh, yeah.
It's just called primary lessons.
It's called Primary Lessons in Christian Healing and Living as Taught by Our Lord Jesus Christ. Breathe, Barbara. Julia,
My same question.
what was it, what is it actually?
The name of it.
Yeah, well, if you Google Primary Lessons by Annie Millitz, then it'll show up.
You couldn't bring yourself to say it again.
Sure, Primary Lessons in Christian Living and Healing. Actually, yeah, a textbook in healing by the power of truth as taught and demonstrated by the Lord Jesus Christ. There we go, that's the actual name of it.
Barbara.
Yes?
Millitz with an M or B?
Millitz, M-I-L-I-T-Z. Annie Ricks, R-I-X, Ricks Millitz. It's funny, she was only married 2 years and yet that name stuck for her whole life. So, one of the things that I loved about this as soon as I found it, and one of my hobbies is searching the internet for metaphysical books in public domain. And then once I find it, there's usually a good month or more of cleaning it up so that it looks nice when we get it in a final form. Usually the books that are out on public domain are in boxes, on different website pages, filled with advertisement, things like that. So then I have to clean it up and put it all in a Word document and make sure it all hangs together correctly, and then change it to a PDF, and then I can put it up or send it to Devon to get it online. But one of the things I loved about this book as soon as I opened it up was that the first thing in healing is to be happy. That is the first requirement to healing of any kind. And I went, oh, I love this person. I love this person. Because happiness is not airy-fairy. Happiness is an attitude of mind that puts you in alignment with that presence of the divine, because no one can convince me that God is miserable. That there has to be an inherent joy, a lightness, a love, a happiness in the presence of the divine. And for us to stay separate from that makes us separate from all of the things that are inherent in the presence of the divine. Money, health, success, feeling good, all of that, if we are not happy, we are not connected to. So I love that she said that the first primary requirement is to be happy, and that everybody wants it. If you don't think you want happiness, you are lying to yourself. You may translate it into other words. I want to be healthy because right now I feel terrible. I want to have enough food. I want to be able to pay my rent. I want to have some extra. But all of that can be combined under this idea of happiness, because once you get those things, you have an emotional reaction. You have a, and to say you don't want that is lying to yourself, because everybody wants that and everyone can have it. It reminds me of Wallace Wattles and the Science of Getting Rich, where he says being rich is everyone's right. Everyone can be rich. I loved that when I found it and read it. It's like, yes, everyone wants to be rich, whether you consider being rich as having millions and millions of dollars or not running out of gas on the side of the road. Whatever your definition of rich is, it's more than enough. It's so that your life is running smoothly. Everyone wants that. Everyone can have that. Everyone wants to be happy. And everyone has a right and the ability to be happy. I love that she started all 12 primary lessons in healing, whether you're on death's doorstep, Whether you're living out in the street with your 6 kids, no matter what it is, you have a right to be happy and you can be happy. And I would go so far as to say, and you must be happy. If you are going to reap the harvests of this mental science, you must learn first to move into a state of happiness, which opens you up to having those experiences in your life, to being able to reap that which you sow in a full harvest. And then she begins her Bible quotes. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So you want to be happy? Know the truth, because it is the truth with a capital T that will set you free. And then she goes on to start talking about what those truths are. And I know John would go crazy if he was in this class, so let's leave him out of it. Because the first premise is God is all. Right? Whatever it is, right now we've got 100 and some odd years under our belt from this, to where we know in quantum physics that there's a unified field, that there's a creative energy that holds everything together, that whatever it is one, that whatever is known at one point in mind is known in all points of mind simultaneously, that that's all got to do with the mathematics of physical form. So it's easier for us to go into this God is all. Think back to 1900, 1890 something. God is all. Well, people were terrified of the devil. People were terrified of evil coming and messing with them. You know, do not lead us into temptation. Like this absolute, all-powerful, all-knowing, everywhere present deity is going to set the stage in our life so that we unknowingly walk into temptation and then we're punished for the rest of our lives. That's the reality that most people were living with. And this idea that God is all was new. That whatever God is, God has to be everything. And yet if you look back in the Bible, in the very beginning, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was one, and the Word was with God. That was it. God is all. So that's the very basic premise of these 12 lessons. And now we start to jump, so take a deep breath. God is good. God is good. And what she goes to say is that this is not the good about your personal preference. Ooh, chocolate is good. Ooh, lemon is bad. No, it's not like that. It is that there are certain truths about spirit that never change. They are eternal. They are true for all people. They cannot be changed. So you know that idea that came to pass and not to stay, that change is the only constant, that things are constantly changing. That's not what she's talking about. She's not talking about whether or not you have a cold today and you're feeling better tomorrow. That's change. That's the world of the relative. This idea of good is an absolute good. So what might some of those ideas be that would be eternal, unchanging, true for all people, and on an absolute level, has no change involved in it?
That we are source?
What?
That we are source?
No, because we're looking at the absolute level, not what we are. That source might be that God is source. What else?
Still love?
That love,
Peace.
peace,
Joy,
slow down,
beauty,
slow down. And because we're dealing in 1900, we're going to put that there is an inherent, eternal, unchanging, true for all people, absolute health. that cannot be taken away from you no matter what little germs are in your physical body. There is a spiritual reality to you of health and wholeness that cannot even be stopped if the body lays down and is no longer functioning. So we'll also put in here life, that you are eternal, that you do not die. Whether or not you're still focused in time and space is a relative experience. There is an absolute truth to you that is immortal, that was never born and cannot die, that can never be changed. And I would be so bold as to put in here prosperity. That regardless of how much money you've got in your pocket, there is an energy, a truth of prosperity and abundance in life and in spirit that cannot be taken away from you. And part of this idea of mental science is to learn how to take your attention away from what happens to be going on in your life, which is the relative, and put it on that which can never change. Health, wholeness, joy, peace, beauty, love, prosperity, source. There is a source to all things that is endless. You can never stop having spirit supply you. You can't stop it. Doesn't matter how, I will not have God supply me anymore. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. So there are these absolute truths that cannot be changed. And what she calls that is good. And I know if you've had classes with John, he's saying, don't use perfect, don't use good. Well, she's going to talk about a perfect good. And she says, God is omnipresent. These are the fundamental concepts that she will build on. God is all, which omnipresent is simply redundant. God is good, which means there is a source, love, peace, harmony, joy, beauty, health, life, and prosperity that is a spiritual reality that can never be changed. It's eternal, it's true for all people, and it is absolute. Meaning it doesn't matter, it doesn't have anything to be in relationship with. There is the absolute, and there is the relative. And sometimes we get confused because we think that which is going on in the relative is truth. Relative has to have something to be in relationship with. I'm prosperous when I have money. That's prosperity on the relative. And then if you don't have money, you're not prosperous. That's truth with a caplet, with a small t. And a lot of times people will say, well, that's my truth. I don't care about your truth. Your truth is the lie that you've been telling yourself over and over again. I care about the truth. Truth with a capital T, the truth that never changes. There's a prosperity that you are made out of, an abundance of all life, and it doesn't matter how much money you've got in your pocket, that abundance and prosperity never changes. And mental science teaches that if you stop looking at truth with a small t and start looking at truth with a big T, the big T truth must manifest in your life, no matter what has to happen for that to show up. No matter whether every doctor in the hospital is proved wrong and you're walking out a couple of days after they had already started planning your funeral. No matter whether bankruptcy and eviction were literally knocking on your door, and now you've got this beautiful place to live in and plenty of money to do whatever it is you want to do. It doesn't matter. The effects of form are subsequent to the cause of truth. Does that make sense? Okay. So those are her first three premises. Yes?
Using this as absolute would be in nature. We in the trees are, in the winter, the trees are naked and there are no leaves on the trees.
Right,
But as they fall in the fall, they fall to the ground, they become the nourishment that feeds the trees so that they can bloom again in the spring.
that's all relative. That's the way it works. The truth is that that tree is alive and well, whether it's got leaves or not. And that it happens to be the winter, which is part of the cycle of life, the normal demonstration of life. Sometimes people get all upset that it's not a miraculous healing. Well, there's process involved sometimes, there's time involved, but that doesn't mean that the truth hasn't always been there. You know, if I do a treatment for someone and they've got the flu and they didn't immediately upon, and so it is, have clear sinuses and no fever, that doesn't mean that the health and wholeness of them has gone away. That's just their interpretation of it through the small t, which is often couched by good in, well, what do I want? What's working for me today? That's not good on the absolute level. That's not, and I'm just going to have to use this word over and over again, that's not God's good. God's good is not dependent on whether or not we are appreciating our process at the moment. Our personal idea of whether or not we like what's going on doesn't change the reality, the truth of the universe. It doesn't change that onward expression of life. It doesn't change that love just because we're feeling crummy. Nobody loves me. Well, I guess the love of the divine is just gone. You just cast it away and there is no more love. I mean, that's ridiculous. So the trees having fallen and our understanding the cycle of life is still in the relative. The truth is that if you look at a bare tree, I can look at that dogwood tree out there and know that it is alive and well, whether I can see those leaves or not. That come springtime, it's going to burst out with beautiful leaves. And that all is well. And we've actually had, I think the redbud tree was dead one year. We went out, we prayed on that tree. And now it is beautiful. We said, no, there is a life inside of you that cannot be denied. There is health and wholeness. You're our redbud tree. You're at the entryway to the center. Hundreds of people appreciate your beauty. I know who you are. And a couple of weeks later, way after it should have come out in the spring, out come these little leaves. There are alternate realities that we live in. And when we get under the illusion that the relative reality of physical form is what's true, we lose all of our ability to create. Because then we're just creating what we see instead of seeing and then watching it create. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Good. So, in the creation stories of the Bible, which were written in metaphor and allegory as a way to try to teach people the spiritual dimensions of life. It says some interesting things. It says that we were made in the image and likeness of God. And it fascinates me that so many people have turned that around to make God in the worst image and likeness of mankind. We have a bitter, vindictive, definitely in need of therapy, older, patriarchic, anthropomorphic deity, this guy, up on a cloud. I mean, with a face and arms and a body and all of that, that I think I said last night in class, really could use some forgiveness work. Right. Because he never forgets anything and holds a grudge throughout eternity. And then is very reactive and very violent in his punishings. And occasionally you get a blessing thrown your way. You know, if you're really, really, really good. So that's just the opposite of what the creation story of the Bible says, where we are made in the image and likeness of God. So how does that feel for you? What would that mean if you were made in the image and likeness of Spirit?
Empowering.
You're empowering. What? Jennifer?
Well, my question is this. We say that God or Source is everything, which means that it would have to be the light and the dark.
And this is where you get into old-timey metaphysics. No, the darkness is in the world of the relative, which has no eternal substance. It is an illusion. It is a dream. so that darkness really has no substance in and of itself. It is only here because we have pretended that darkness is real. The only reality is light. And that is shown by the fact that you can have one little candle in a dark room and the candle will fill up the room. You can bring in a jar of darkness into a lit room and open it up, and the darkness doesn't do anything. It's not even there anymore. So, classic metaphysics is that the only reality is the truth of spirit, period, end of story. If you are experiencing anything that can change, that is not eternal, that is not changeless, then that has no basis or substance on its own. It doesn't exist. It's not real. The only real thing is that which is always true. Light, love, growth, life, power, prosperity, happiness, joy, beauty. Those kinds of things are there no matter what we think about the experience. We can look at something and see it beautiful. Someone else can look at it and see it ugly. The truth is that if we open up to the beauty that's there, whether it's in a person or a situation, we will find beauty. If we open up to the love that is there, no matter what's going on or what happened, we will find love. And what mental science that has an incredible track record of healing people and changing conditions instantly has its basis in is turning away from the world of the relative and focusing only on the presence of spirit and knowing that that is so now, come hell or high water, no matter what the experience is, we will not be daunted, we will not be changed, we will not give up on truth with a capital T. And what that does is that unleashes this amazing power to have change happen. And it happens over and over and over and over again. You know, thousands and thousands and thousands of people that would have been dead had they stayed in the world of the relative had instantaneous healings. People have demonstrated money out of thin air, things like that are miraculous in nature, come from this idea that we are not going to deal at the level of process. We're not going to deal at the level of form. We are going to accept our divine inheritance that is, we are made in the image and likeness of all that God is, and we are going to live that and think that and speak that and know that and insist on it and have it show up. And so you can go and say, well, my truth is, my experience is, well, that's lovely, and you can have that, but that doesn't make it true with a capital T, and that's not the realm of miracles. The realm of miracles is the realm of the divine, not the realm of the relative and our filtering and impressions and processing of it. And so that's why I said, those of you who have been in classes with me before, this is going to be a little bit different. And just take a deep breath, because when you can stand and look at an oncoming freight train and say, you are not real, things happen. Things happen. Yeah, I saw a movie. It was about groups that were put together by there were certain groups in society. There were 4 groups, and then there were the ones that encompassed all the groups at once. And the Virgin, and they were supposed to be killed because they were unique in evolution.
Right.
The powers that be didn't want them, and she was in that test where she was in a vat of water and she was drowning, and she looked at it and she said, "You are not real." And boom, the glass exploded and out she was. When we can look at in the midst of we're drowning, we're dying, this isn't real. Things change, and they change often with a lot of energy and a lot of movement to them. This idea that we are made in the image and likeness of God is so big. It goes with this idea that God is all, that there's only one thing going on, and if there's only one thing going on, it has to be you. It has to be you. That is who we are. What is God to you? Your homework from last night's class, what is God and who am I? Take that as your homework for this week too. Although she gives you a lot of homework. Jesus said, I and the Father are one. And then we go, oh no, Jesus was the only one. Jesus didn't say, I am the only one of the Father. He said, I and the Father are one. We are one. He didn't put only in there. For that matter, I love some of his quotes. These things and greater ye shall do also. Well, come on. We're walking on fire. Let's walk on water. What are we doing? Have the blind to see, raise the lame, go send people out to catch a fish and pull out the gold coin from their mouth. We're supposed to live that way. But the only way that I know to live it is to stop living in the world of the relative, no matter how much sense it makes. Of course, the tree is getting nourishment from the leaves, but there is a greater truth to that tree, whether the leaves were swept up or not. That there is a life within it that cannot be denied. And even if that tree lets go of its physical form, the life of the tree doesn't go anywhere. When we were clearing this property, that was in my more wooey days, I guess. But I would go out in front of the bulldozer and I would have a little chat with the tree and say, this is the way that it is. You are about to lose your physical home, in that you are going to be bulldozed, and there's a lovely tree over here. So you may want to just go ahead and take your life force and go and move in with this other tree in that physical form, or really just be okay with the fact that you're letting go of your experience on planet Earth right now, but that's what's happening. We took down a lot of trees, but I had this feeling that the trees could have a conversation with me, and that the tree could have free choice to either make its transition to wherever it goes in the world of heavenly trees, I don't know, or to move into a different form. You know, it'd be Ruth Montgomery, it would be a tree walk-in. This other tree would just be living there and go, whoa, who are you? So what we're doing is we're moving to a different level of experiencing life. That your physical form is great, it's beautiful, but you are not your form. You are not your body, you're not your money, you're not your house, you're not your job, you're not your name, you're not your age. There is that truth of you that supersedes all of that, that is bigger than all of that. And I have been around these masters in New Thought, in metaphysics. Johnny Coleman was one of them. Edwin Gaines, I think, is one of them. You get around these people and something happens. They are so clear about the world in which they live, and it doesn't matter what the world of effects are. They are absolutely rooted in this idea that they are made in the image and likeness of God, that God is what they are, and that there is nothing that can change that. And then to live that into form. In Him we move, we live and move and have our being. We live in a God world. We're made out of God's stuff. We move around with God energy because God is all that there is. And if you look at the capital T of truth, God is source, love, peace, harmony, joy, beauty, health, life, prosperity. It is absolute good. It cannot be changed. It is eternal, and it is true for everyone, not just us. That is the truth for everyone, not just the cool kids, not just the kids who have the right costume on. It's true for everyone. If it is true for anyone, it must be true for everyone. And I take it a step further and say, well, if it's true for people, it's true for dogs. It's true for cats. It's true for fish. It's true for birds. It's true for animals. It's true for trees. It's true for rocks. Life is life is life. Does that make sense? Good, 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 good.
Remember?
Yes.
I think it's interesting about the trees that most of them transition from that physical form.
Yes. Those are all of the window dressings and the baseboards and the flooring in my home are all made out of those trees. Yeah. So they're all going, yeah, man, I remember that.
So you were talking about being in the image of, us being in the image of God, and we were discussing, or being God,
Mhm.
with that,
What does that mean to you? Yes.
and I wondered about happy.
What do you mean you wondered
Well,
about happy?
happy is the state you have to be in for healing, for miracles.
Right.
And so, is happy, that came to me, and I wanted to see, is absolute, is it absolute?
Is joy absolute?
Yes. So happy is.
Yes.
Okay.
How could joy not be absolute? If joy wasn't absolute, then something other than joy would have to be absolute. And can you conceive of a miserable God? Of an eternal, absolute, never-changing misery? I can't conceive of that. I know that there are people who can insist on having that experience of life. But just because I have an experience of illness or poverty or unhappiness, and hear me on this, it doesn't make it true. And where we get into trouble is where people will say, well, this is my truth. And I just want to go, stop everything. Your truth is relative. Your truth is small. I want to go to the truth that is all in all, for all the time. That's where I want to go. And my job is to take someone to that place as much as they will go with me. You know, I'm always saying, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And there are some people who go, yeah, Barbara, let's go. And other people who go, I am out of here. You people are nuts. And it's funny that a lot of people will wait until they're in a lot of pain before they are willing to look at a different kind of reality in life. They'll wait till they're almost dead. Well, I've tried everything else, let me try God. I've heard things about these practitioners and that minister over at Center for Spiritual Living Asheville, let's give them a go, because I got nothing. And sometimes that's where people need to be, to let go of the world of the relative, so that they can be open to a new idea. We just went through Christmas where we talked about how that Christ consciousness, that sonship to the Father, and in 1900 God was the Father. I think it's very neurotic, but God was the Father, we are children of God, you know, and I would love to rearrange that languaging a little bit, but that's what you're going to find in the book. So whatever that spiritual source is, we are creations of, manifestations of, expressions as that spirit energy. And that means that whatever was going on in the spiritual being who opened up to a state of enlightenment that carried the name in this form of Jesus, that Christ consciousness, that is the reality and the truth of our spiritual nature and essence also. It cannot be only one person. Otherwise, it's not true for all people. So you can't have higher and lower spiritual people. You can have people who are more awake than others, but the people who are asleep still are as spiritual as the people who are awake. Otherwise, they would have to do something to become that higher level of spirituality. And I say that because sometimes we get a little self-important, and we think that we're better than. And the truth is that we are all the same. Chris?
Well, I've heard you say many times, and I believe in this wholeheartedly, and it is that truth is constant, and we choose to collapse into it wrong.
Yes.
And we're collapsing into that truth at whatever moment in time.
Right. So if we have, through our ignorance, our ignoring of truth, through our belief in the shadow life, which is fear and darkness, if we have collapsed into form, something that we don't want, then the way out of that is to abandon all of that. And that's why I love the old-timey metaphysics, like abandon that, send it away into where it did not come from. It is nothing, it is not real. Take all of your attention, all of your focus, all of your words, and focus on that which you want, and do not let yourself be swayed. Period, end of story. I remember in, it was like 2007, 2008, and the center was in some pretty dire financial straits. You know, we're coming on to our 20th anniversary next week. And I remember I was saying, I will believe these teachings if I have to sit out in that parking lot on Sunday morning because we are locked out of this building. I will stand out there and I will teach what I know because I know what I know what I know. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. And then things happen. Things show up, things change. But it's almost like the race consciousness, the resistance of the little part of humanity is trying to say, don't be so bright, let me put this bushel over you. And you just tone yourself down. You know, that resistance to change that comes from so many billions of people. And here we are going, we are the light, we are the love, you can have it all, baby. And so when that other thing comes up, it is so important for us not to give into it. Not to give into it. Come hell or high water, come healing or death, it doesn't matter. I will know what I know what I know, and I will not give up on that. That's what I love about this teaching. Let's take a break.
My mind was searching for about that. Instead of just asking, what is that? My mind was trying to search, trying to remember. And then I didn't know. I didn't know what to ask. And so then I think I did. I got in my mind. And so that made me feel like
And it would actually be the person she was
where I disconnected from you.
One time she did wheeling,
I was trying to figure out where
she got back and found out that I was a race car that night. You know? So she said things like, I'll take the dog. And you know, they were like, what? She knew, yeah. So anyway, she's gone, she's in England, and so I've been going to her if I got to keep to her, she doesn't need it. We go play. I'm going to do that next Tuesday, but I just realized I can come to help.
You know what that is?
No, exactly. Obviously not. Type of massage, not really massage.
Come on now.
Oh wow.
This is the right fit for me. It must be for me. It's time to create it this way.
Wow.
That is the easy in a nutshell definition of how creation happens. That collapsing into physical form, and that is testable, replicable, and measurable. That people can do that over and over and over again. That which you focus upon, you create in your experience, and that just used to be, you know, airy-fairy kind of stuff, and now it's proven scientifically that what we focus upon, we bring into physical form, period, end of story. So if we focus on why our lives are screwed up, then we get why our lives are screwed up. Who cares? We want to focus on what is beautiful and wonderful and perfect and happy and healthy and prosperous, and then that will show up as our lives. Okay, so you do have homework. This is the end of lesson number 1. And if you have the book from the website, it's pages 11 and 12. The bottom of page 11. I think I'm just gonna need a regular table up here from now on. Yeah. The bottom of page 11. It says, copy the following and mentally repeat it every night and morning. God is health, life, love, truth, substance, intelligence. God is all. That is your affirmation. And then it goes on to say God is omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience. Omnipresent means everywhere present. Omnipotence means all-powerful. And omniscience means all-knowing, which is exactly how I got an A in college algebra. Because I didn't have a clue. But I knew in the divine mind of God, somebody knew that was my mind now. And so my mind, the teacher, whoever wrote the test and whoever graded the test and whoever created algebra to begin with, it was all part of one mind. And I would take these tests and ace them, then have no idea what I was doing. Whatever you need to know is here now. Omniscience. And here's the affirmation. I am the thought of God, the idea of the divine mind. In Him I live, move, and have my being. I am spiritual, harmonious, fearless, and free. I am governed by the law of God, the everlasting good, and I am not subject to the law of sin, sickness, and death. I know the truth, and the truth makes me free from evil in every form and from all material bondage now and forever. God works through me to will and do whatever ought be done by me. I am happy, I am holy, I am loving, I am wise, I and the Father are one. Amen. It's a little different languaging, but if you can go to the spirit of it, it's very cool. So in the book, that's your homework to do morning and evening for the next week. Then we go on to the real and the unreal. Love this. Because it's a weird concept. Or how can you say that the experiences in my life are not real? How can you say that they don't exist, that they're an illusion, that they're not real? I'm living them, I'm feeling them, I'm holding them in my hands. And yet, if we continue to live them, to feel them, and to hold them in our hands, we will continue to live them, to feel them, and to hold them in our hands. This is where schizophrenia steps in. And you turn away from the condition. You stop it. You don't give any energy to it. You don't give any life to it. It's like trying to raise a dead problem in our lives. Every day we try to breathe life into it and prop it up and carry it around with us. It's dead, it's rotten, it's stinky. Let it go, it doesn't exist. Move on in life. Move into that idea that says God is all that there is. That is what I am. I am made in the image and likeness of source, love, peace, harmony, joy, beauty, health, life, prosperity. That's who I am. And nothing else is real. Take a deep breath. I promise you, if you can go there, amazing things will open up for you. Just amazing things will open up for you. I'm going to do a little bit of metaphysical Bible interpretation. This was the very first talk I ever did in ministerial school. This is not the one that I did out in the world, but the one that I did in class. And that is the story of the Garden of Eden. Now remember, you have Adam and Eve. They were very happy. Very, very happy. They had everything that they could possibly want. They were very, 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 very happy. Until And I don't know where the serpent comes in, other than people don't like snakes, until they ate of the tree, of the fruit, of the knowledge of what?
Good and evil.
Good and evil. They ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They moved into judgment, and that screwed everything up. They went from having everything that they could possibly want. All was wonderful. They were naked, which means they were happy with themselves. They had no self-judgment, no shame. Nothing was wrong. They were just joy-filled beings in the garden. Remember, this is an allegory. If Adam and Eve were really the first people on the planet, where did the people come from that they married their kids off to? There's a small little problem in the Bible there. So what happened was that they were tempted by a snake, whatever that means. They ate of the fruit of judgment. And they moved into the world of good and bad, right and wrong, light and dark, all of that. And that screwed everything up because they went from the absolute to the relative. Good and evil are in the relative. God is. That's the absolute. The treatment in the absolute is God is, I am, and so it is. That's all that there is to it. As soon as you go into what do I want, how does this feel, do I like it, do I not like it, is it enough, is it not enough, then that's all the relative. And that's when Adam and Eve fell out, were cast out. Now there wasn't some God walking around, Adam, why are you hiding from me, Adam? You know, that didn't happen. By their own acts of moving into judgment, they could no longer be in the Garden of Eden, where all things were given freely. By their own act of moving into judgment and therefore moving into the world of the relative, they had to leave the world of pure, perfect spirit, the world of the absolute. That's why when you do your forgiveness work and you move into pure love, you have moved from the world of the relative back into the absolute truth of who you are, and everything works out amazingly. Why? Because you're in pure love. And even if it didn't work out amazingly, it would feel like it was working out amazingly because you're in pure, perfect love. Your good is not contingent upon outside circumstances. However, when you're clear about the fact that you are made in the image and likeness of God and God is all that there is, things on the outside happen. And that's great, but your good is still not contingent upon it. It's not, I'm going to feel secure and safe and happy and joy-filled. Oh, great, I got money. Now I'm going to feel secure and happy and safe and joy-filled. No, you already felt that way, and great, you got some money. Great, let's go do something. Do you see the difference? It's huge. And so, because of their own choices of moving into the realm of the relative, dealing with the judgment of good and evil, they could no longer live in what was called the Garden of Eden. And so they moved out into the world, and you know, the list is long about all of the sweat of the brow and the toil and pain in birthing, childbirth, and all of these terrible things that happen. When we move into the world of the relative, we have struggle. We suffer. When we move back into our true nature, which is that we are God in form, and God is all that there is, so think about this, so we are all that there is, then everything just shows up. In the metaphor, it is given to us. It's given to us. We don't have to do anything, it just shows up. There's all this great stuff. It's a great life because we know who we are, because we're living in that spiritual reality of who we are. And when we don't do that, when we move into judgment, it's like, oh my God, did you see that? You know what just happened? We're out of the Garden of Eden. We're kicked out by our own actions, by our own choices, by our own thoughts, by our own words. You know, and why that was written up to give women the bad rap on that, there's a twisted sickness in the Bible. You know, there is. It's very patriarchal. Anyway.
So in today's terms, it would be considered, as Abraham would say, the vortex. So the Garden of
Oh yeah, the Garden of Eden would be Abraham Hicks vortex, where everything is just automatically there, but you have to get happy to get in the vortex. You've got to be in vibrational harmony with that which you want to experience, which would be the Garden of Eden, which is everything all being good. You've got to be in vibrational harmony with that, which means you cannot have anything be bad. As soon as you go into bad, for any good reason, you know, we're masters at coming up with good reasons to go into bad. But every time we do it, we kick ourselves out of the vortex or the Garden of Eden. It's the exact same story, and it's metaphorical and allegorical. Yes, Abraham does speak in metaphors, but he's Abraham Hicks. So in terms of the real and the unreal, what she's talking about is experiencing your true nature as spirit. And she goes into Bible and says, the first of all commandments, I read this on Sunday, is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment, and the second is like, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So if God is all that there is, and if you are in fact God as in form, your job is to love. Now it's really hard to love and hang out in judgment at the same time. You may have noticed that. So your choice is to love or to be in judgment. If you're in judgment, understand you will be kicked out of the Garden of Eden or the vortex. And if you are in love, you will go right back in. So if you find yourself with things not working out in a way that is happy and joy-filled and beauty and prosperous and loving, then consider that you have thrown yourself out of the Garden of Eden. And the way back in is love. Love for yourself. One of the things I've always liked about this Bible quote is that you must love your neighbor as yourself. That presupposes that you love yourself. So you gotta love yourself. The first thing that happened to Adam and Eve is they felt shame. If you are ashamed of anything, you gotta love the hell right out of yourself and get back into the garden. And you can't love anybody else until you can love yourself. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And then you've got to love God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. You've got to be aware of the presence of the divine and experience that love with all of your mind. That means you've got to think about it. Not just the part of your mind that, okay, it's 20 minutes in the morning and I'm going to think about the presence of the divine and then I'm going to go and think about all the problems in my life. No, that's not all your mind. All your mind is all your time. All of your heart means all of your love. You've got to see the divine in every person, in every event, in every experience, in every moment, and love it. If you have things going on in your life, you've got to love the hell out of it. If you don't want to live in hell, you've got to love the hell out of your life. With all your mind, with all your heart, with all of your strength, because this is not that easy. It looks so real. It seems so rational. You're going to go tell somebody what you learned in class today, and they're going to look at you like you are off your rocker. What do you mean everything is good? That's crazy. What do you mean everything is light? What do you mean everything is love? What do you mean that will work miracles? Yeah, it will. Jenny.
This is why it's suggested that we don't tell people who have the propensity to be negative and doubting everything.
Right.
Because they will say something to us and it will stick in our mind, which we don't want it to. So keeping it to yourself is an interesting process and difficult sometimes, but I think it helps a lot to get it into the forebrain of our mind.
Right, even if they really need the help. I was just trying to help them by explaining what I learned, and then they stomped all over my party. Right, and she talks about that in this chapter. She says that don't give any of your conversation to people who are talking about what is wrong with the world. You don't have to be rude, but sometimes it's wisest just to be quiet. So this whole idea about whether it's evil or darkness or lack or just flat out wrong, this whole idea that it doesn't have any power. She says, is it reasonable to say that God is good and all-powerful and then say that evil has any power at all? Is it reasonable to believe in the omnipresence of God and at the same time think that the devil has any real presence? Come, let God in you speak the whole truth. So here we have this one idea that says God is all good and God is all powerful, except there's this idea that we call evil. And we don't use that word anymore, but we've got our own words, right? It's so unenlightened. You know? It's so materialistic. It's so corporate. How can God be all good and all powerful and have anything outside of itself? That means that in the unenlightened, the materialistic, the corporate, that's all our judgment that has kicked us out of the Garden of Eden, nobody did it but us, then that has to be the presence of the divine. I love what Wallace Wattles said about plutocrats and bureaucrats. He was writing at the time of the big rise of the railroads and the steel industry, and he said the world is perfect yet not complete. And when there comes a time that God doesn't need these people anymore, they will cease to be. But if they are here now, it is because they fulfill some kind of a requirement in the ongoing evolution of mankind. So get off it. Monsanto. You don't want to eat it, don't eat it. But then don't complain about the price of the food at Earth Fair. Yeah, I mean, that used to be it. It's like, oh, all of these chemicals and pesticides and things they're doing to animals. Oh my God, that's not, what did they used to be called, dinner for the earth? That's not dinner for the earth, that's dinner for the rich. No, you don't get to have it both ways. You get to make choices in life and then be happy with your choices. Be in alignment with being in the Garden of Eden and watch how everything comes to you. The idea in the Bible that people have gotten so mistaken about is as if they were just in the garden once. And they got thrown out through all of eternity. They only got thrown out as long as they stay in judgment. And if you move back into that idea that God is all that there is, that that is what I am, that I am you and you are me and all is well and perfect, and I can love everything every moment. I will be back in the Garden of Eden. My life will be filled with magic and miracles, and people will get around me and go, whoa, who is that? That is the force that we're dealing with. That is the power that we're dealing with. We live in this vibrational reality that pops in and out of form in nanoseconds, and we complain that we keep bringing it in the same way that it used to be. You don't like your life the way that it is, then bring it in a different way, and this is how you do it. You give no power to that which you don't want. You are willing to look at yourself and saying, you are perfect, whole spirit. I don't care what the doctor has diagnosed. I don't care what I'm feeling. I don't care how that looks or what is happening. There is no reality to it. There is no substance to it. There is only pure, perfect health and wholeness. That is the only thing that I will see. You look at your bank account and you say, I don't care how much money is in there. I know that the prosperity and the abundance, the supply of all of God is here now because that is my nature. It is my essence. It is who I am. And right here and right now, I know that for my bank account, for the body of my affairs, for the things that I do. There's an energy that goes out before me into my life and sets everything up. And then I show up and it even stays behind. So at some level, the world knows that Barbara Waterhouse was here. That is the power that you're dealing with. And if you falter, you'll get kicked out of the garden. That's all. So if you're kicked out of the garden and things start to go awry, just pop yourself back in. That's the part they forgot in the Bible. How to get back in. It's a revolving door. They make it sound like once you're punished by God, you're punished throughout eternity. It is only now. Go back in. Excuse me. I figured it out. Here I am. Stripped down naked again. It's all good. Bible.
That's next week.
The first thing that they did was they felt shame. They covered up their body, covered their nakedness. Uncover your nakedness. Deal with it. You're God. Bible. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Very good. That's the truth. Everything is good. Now, if you get into, well, I don't like it, you've descended into the relative, you've gone into judgment, you just kicked yourself out of the garden. It's all good. Good in the absolute. Good for everyone. Good in the eternal, unchanging beauty, perfection, wholeness, power, love, health, joy, prosperity of all of life. It is good and very good. And it is yours. It's yours right now. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change. You just have to focus on it and let go of everything else that you've made up, because it's a lie. It's a lie. If it is anything other than you are God in form and you live in a world created by God, that love is all that there is, that all is well, it is a lie. And you can live in the lie if you want. But then that's where you've got, toiling by the sweat of your brow and difficulty in childbirth, which let's just look at that a little metaphysically. When you're going to birth something new in your life, do you want it to be easy or do you want it to be hard? Of course you do. Of course you do. Okay. I just want to make sure I get through the second lesson. Calls the idea of evil in the world delusions, that you're having delusions. There's nothing in God to be sick or make disease. There's no reality in disease. Otherwise, you would have an eternally sick universe. You would have an eternally sick, spiritual, creative power that would create sickness eternally. So, okay, we live in a relative, sometimes we've got to deal with it. If you get cut, it bleeds, but are you still bleeding? Is anyone still bleeding from the cut of their childhood? Why? Because there's something in your body that brings you back to health and wholeness. Anytime people have surgeries, what they're doing is they're giving the body the optimal chance to come back into health and wholeness. They're either removing the obstruction to that health and wholeness, or they're putting things in place so that the body can come back into its alignment with health and wholeness. If everybody stayed in the same place that they were when they got off the operating room table, nobody would ever get better. There's something in you that is constantly calling you back to your true nature, which is healthy, joyful, prosperous, loved. There is that within you that is always going to call you back. And what mental science is saying is that since it is always being changed back to its original true state, there is no essence to it. There is no reality to it. There is no substance to disease, to poverty, to unhappiness, to failure. There's no substance to it because it's always being called back to that higher state of your being, and it's always being transformed into that true self that you are. It's the rare person that can carry out hate for a lifetime. Very often, someone will let it go and go back into their true state of love. Does that make sense? Because that's this schizophrenia thing, which I love, because I've never given much credence to this world anyway. You know, there's such a greater reality going on, and that's where I want to live. And I don't really care anymore about the circumstances in life. I know what I know, what I know, and that's all I care about. And that's where I want to live, and that's where I want to go. All of the details of it all can be so draining because they're in the world of the relative. Oh, this has to be done. Oh, that has to be done. Oh my gosh, I don't really care. I mean, you may see me come over in my pajamas one day and just say, I don't care. I know what I know, what I know, and that's all that matters. Really. Another Bible verse, in all thy ways acknowledge him. Another one, I am God and there is none else. You know, there's some cool stuff in the Bible. It keeps saying this is how you live a good life. I heard someone once say that if you go through every story in the Bible, and if they do what God told them to do, they all end up prospering. Every last story is that if you are in alignment with spiritual truth, you will end up prospering. You know, Joseph gets thrown in the hole by his brothers. Job is caught up in some weird, sick game between God and the devil, and they torment him. Jacob, was Jacob the one who went to Egypt and ended up being the one who got all of the Joseph. So all of these people, if you listen to that divine truth on the outside, for those who have ears to hear, you know, it's written on many levels. On the outside, if you do what God tells you to do, everything will work out. On the inside, if you come into alignment with spiritual truth, everything will work out. You will be healthy and happy and whole and prosperous. Not only will you prosper, but your families will prosper. For generations you will prosper because you are in alignment with spiritual truth. Spiritual truth does not share space with the world of the relative. You cannot have good and evil, right and wrong, and God is all there is. At the same time, you have to pick. You have to pick. And you get the effects of that choice, whatever your choice is. So on page 15 in the book from the website, under Unlearning Errors, it says, in the first chapter of Genesis, the mind that awaits the coming of the truth is spoken of in the language of symbolism, as the earth without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Darkness is the symbol of ignorance, and light is the symbol of truth. And God said to the waiting mind, let there be light, truth. And there was light. You know, he said, let there be light before he ever made the heavens and the earth, which could have possibly had a sun. So he's talking about spiritual light, truth. Before there was ever physical light, there was spiritual light. She says, denial makes us receptive. I don't ever want you to stay in the denial, even though sometimes she leads you there. Clean it up with something that is affirming the truth of who you are. There is no evil, there is only good. There is only God. You know, add that if she's leading you in a denial. But this is the way old-timey metaphysics was. It was all about denials. So she says, denials make us receptive. And God said, let there be light, as though the earth must let the light shine. And so it is. The mind must let the truth come in. You know, as much as I beat on you, you've got to let it in. I can't make it go in you. You've got to let it in. Prepare ye the way of the Lord and make his paths straight. By beginning to clear out the rubbish of false thinking, pulling up the plants which my Father hath not planted. If it is not something that is eternal, true for everyone, unchanging, then it is rubbish. And it is not, as she would say, it is not from God. It is from the limited, lying part of you that doesn't know, the ignorant part of you that just doesn't know. And what you've got to do is you've got to get rid of that. And if you're going to pull up the plants of rubbish thinking, stinking thinking, then you might as well replant that with the seeds of truth, which is that whatever God is all that there is. I am made in the image and likeness of God. Whatever Jesus the Christ was, that is what I am also. I am all that is. All is well in the world. Everything is good. Everything is God. Every being on the planet is perfect, pure, whole, and complete, because the truth is the truth for everyone. Those are the seeds that you plant. And then your body says, oh my God, I'm a God body. I'm going to come into alignment with the health and wholeness that I always have been. Your bank account says, oh my God, I'm a God bank account. I'm going to come into alignment with all of the prosperity of life. And what is today? Tuesday. We go out and we buy a Powerball ticket and our number comes in and we tithe generously to the center of the church. And take care of all of our friends. Who knows how it's going to be or what's going to happen. But when we are kicking ourselves out over and over and over again, even when we come to the center and then we leave here and we go, we came in, we went into the Garden of Eden and we're feeling so good, there was only love and we're happy and all is well, and then we go outside and we kick ourselves out. Even when we keep kicking ourselves out over and over and over again, it is important that we come back into alignment with who we are. You know how to get out of the garden. You know how to be poor. You know how to be sick. You know how to make it hard. What we need to learn better than that is how to get back in, how to be healthy, how to be prosperous, and how to have life be a wonderful, joyous experience. I'm not sure it's always easy, and I think that to want it to be easy may be a little neurotic. That's why it says to love the Lord thy God with all of your strength, because sometimes you need that strength to carry you through. So don't just wimp out because it called you to step up a little bit. Well, I thought it was going to be ease and grace. It that way. Boom, out of the garden, into the relative, good and evil. Ease and grace are good. What I've got is evil. Boom, we're out. No, God is all that there is. I have all power within me. I have the omnipotence, the omnipresence, and the omnipotence, omniscience, omnipresence inside of me. I can do all things. I can. You can. Because there is no difference between you and all that God is. If there were a difference, everything would be changed. God would no longer be all that is. And as we've learned from quantum physics, time and space would not be able to hang together and we wouldn't be here. The fact that we are here and can have this conversation is an affirmation of the presence of Spirit being all, in all, as all at the same time. That's our job. That's what we have to do. That's what the Bible means when it says those things. And the Bible thumpers, just, you know, I love to watch them on TV, and I do get kicked myself right out of the garden. How to get back. It is, because what I notice is how easily they abandon what they purport to believe in. And so I look at myself and say, well, you know, be careful, don't abandon what you believe in so easily. Just because it makes for good story, just because it, you know, if I could use guilt and fear on you, boy, this center would be huge. You know, if you don't come to this class, you're going to get sick. Do you know that it's flu season, and if you don't want to catch the flu, you better come here every week and keep your spiritual supply topped off. It's a crock. I've thought of that. The mind that is determined to believe in God alone faithfully takes up the denial of all that is not God And as he walks along the way, he soon begins to see that truth proves itself right. So, if you are determined to see the presence of Spirit and the presence of Spirit only, and to ignore everything that pretends to be so that is not, you will have things show up and reveal themselves to you. You will have truth prove itself to you.
So that's what Woodstock was, getting back to the garden, huh?
No. When the mind that dwells in the consciousness of God sends forth its word by denying any place or power to sickness, pain, disease, then we see health spring forth as flowers spring up when a crushing weight has been removed. So what you're going to do is deny any place or power. You have no place in my life. Sickness, pain, disease. You have no power in my life. Sickness, pain, disease. You have no reality in my life. I will not give you any energy. I will not give you any power because you have no power of yourself. The only power that you could have is if I give you my power. You have no power. I'm keeping my power. My power is all about health, happiness, wholeness, prosperity. You have no place in my life. You have no power in my life. Those are the words that are supposed to be coming out of your mouth. Those are the ideas that are supposed to be guiding your path. These are the things that cause, honest to God, miracles to show up in your life. It's a miracle to me that people can be poor and sick. You're immersed in a universe of health and prosperity, created out of health and prosperity itself. The energy that you have to muster up to create illness and poverty is amazing. You're made out of love. Love is all that there is, and yet you're going to feel alone and lonely? Wow! If you just flip that a little bit, you'll have all kinds of different experiences. You're swimming against the tide. Turn around. Flip over on your back. Float for a while. This was a quote that Robert Schuller used to read all the time. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. And they shall walk and not faint. So what does that mean, wait upon the Lord? Does that mean, okay, I'm waiting for God to show up here? Or how about a coffee? Really? That means to be in service to spiritual truth. To be in alignment with spiritual truth. And if you bring yourself in alignment to that spiritual truth, that reality of who you are and who everyone else is, and to be in service to that greater love, that greater good, that greater God, then there will be that which will bring you up. That you will rise up. You will not get tired and you will not pass out along the path. When they talk about walk, they probably meant hundreds of miles. They will not faint. That's your job. That's what this is. That's what this is. So here is your homework for lesson 2. And it says, copy and learn the following denials and repeat them night and morning in conjunction with the affirmations at the close of the preceding lessons. And you've got 2 weeks worth of homework going on. And you're not going to be able to copy these down, so I encourage you to get it out of the book. Since in God there is no evil, I deny that there is any reality to evil at all. There is no real power in sin or death. There is no real substance to sickness or disease. There is no true cause for sorrow. There is nothing to fear. God's world is spiritual, not material. There is no matter. Spirit is the only substance. Personality is not the real self. The true individual is spirit, not flesh. I am the free and fearless, impersonal, selfless child of God, and what I am, so are you, my neighbor, as myself. Amen. So even though the first three are denials, they finish it up with I am free and fearless. Impersonal self is child of God, and so are you, just like me.
What are those pages?
This is page 18 in the downloaded book from the website. It's the end of lesson 2. The end of the lessons always have your homework for the next week. Deb, did you have a question? Okay. Any questions before we close? Yes?
How did you get back in the garden? If you have a,
God is all there is. You are made in the image and likeness of God, and so is everyone else. Open your heart and love. I will love the Lord thy God with all my heart, with all my mind, with all my strength, and with all my soul. That's how you get back in the garden. You love. You think about love. You feel love. You use all of your strength on love. And I'm not sure what all my soul is. Any other questions? Yes, Nancy.
Not a question, I was just on my tablet on the book, but it's like 2 pages off. Page 18, maybe page 20.
Well, the pages on the PDF are numbered. So what your tablet is calling a page may not be the page on the bottom of the PDF. Are you looking at the printed number on the bottom of the paper?
yeah, the PDF copy is good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, then I have no idea what happened.
Go to the end of the chapter.
Yeah, the end of lesson 2 is your homework. Thank you. So evidently the pages are going to be in the relative.
Excuse me, I just wanted to comment that several times you used the phrase child of God.
Yes.
Because I have used that a lot about myself. But as Wayne said, what do the children of God become when they grow up? They become God.
I know.
That was good.
I know. This book was written 115 years ago. It was copyrighted 115
That
years
was
ago.
just as good.
Yeah, I don't like child of God. It brings up all of our unhealed child issues, and then you have a father deity who does not have father issues. Oh, so now we're going to go to mother, father, God. Oh no, it's double trouble. So what we're going to do in this book is we're just going to take a deep breath and go ahead and use the language. Because I personally know many people who have had miracles happen in their lives from this kind of language. I have seen people have their lives totally change. And so let's just go with it for a couple of months and use the language and go ahead and be a child of God. Maybe that'll bring up some forgiveness work so we can open up our hearts more and be more in the garden. Yay! Pick out what you're going to do. Hold it in your hand. So here we are. God is all there is. Each one of us made out of and in the image and likeness of divine spirit. Absolute abundance beyond our wildest dreams. Not only from this vantage point on planet Earth is the sky filled with stars, but as we move out to nebula and different systems and even to different universes piled on top of each other, there is so much that our minds can't grok it. And yet somehow that is what we are. Not only is the outward form of that what we are, but that which caused it all to be is that which we are. We are the creative force of all of life. It is our nature. It is who we are right here and right now. And so we give this gift this day out of that fullness, out of that prosperity, out of that clarity of consciousness, knowing that we are God beings living in a God world and all is well. We live in the Garden of Eden. We give this gift knowing that spiritual law takes it, multiplies it, and gives it back to us. Knowing that we are blessed by the giving, by the receiving, and all around us are blessed. We are in alignment with spiritual truth, and we prosper. And with great gratitude for this rich and abundant life we have, we simply release this into divine mind, knowing that it is so. As together we say, and so it is. and wow, miracles are in the works. Transformations, alignment, changes, happiness, joy, love. That is who we are. That is our divine nature. Breathe it in, take it in. Life is good. We are God beings living in God's world. Life is good. We've got it all. And so right here, right now, I know that we are conscious, we are aware, we are blessed. Our bodies have only the vibrant health of God in form as us. Our bank accounts have only the prosperity and the abundance of all of life. Our relationships are God, loving God, and love coming back. That's all that there is. I know that our way is made clear. We move forward with our heads held high, and we live the divine God life we were always meant to live. This money is blessed because we are blessed. This center is blessed. All is a blessing. And together we say, and so it is. I love you guys. Have a wonderful